G'day everyone, hope you're all doing well out there. Today I'm going to attempt to DCC fit an old Graham Farish class 52. This is a 371403 if I show you there on camera. I picked this one up off eBay here in Australia for, it was about 100 Australian dollars, which I think is about 60 British pounds. So not too bad. So I've run it on DC and it's an absolute brilliant runner, and I can't really fault it. If I take it out of the box, we can just see it's actually in very good, excellent condition. There's no marks on it or anything. It's like almost like new. But yeah, like I said, I had it running on DC and it runs beautifully. Absolutely fantastic. So I did download an article from the internet which refers to doing a class 37, but I think this these all have the same split chassis. Not that I'm an expert on it or anything. This is the first time I've sort of done it on this one. I've done a class 08 before. That was following a video on YouTube. Now I haven't been able to find too much on this particular one, but I guess with the split chassis I can just follow the article and it all should be straightforward, hopefully. But we'll give it a go, and yeah, first thing is pull it apart, and as usual the sides just unclip, hopefully, and it should come out. Okay, now I've got it apart. We'll unscrew this part here, so it'll be in our way. So the next part of the article says to remove these two screws here, which should separate the two halves. Now, one important thing, I've read the position of the bogies. Like you can see here, there's several little notches there. Now we want to, when we reassemble, we want to put it back where they were originally, which is right on the end on both of those. So it's important that we do that when we reassemble. Okay, now another important thing to note, this is plastic spacers here and here. We have to make sure we don't lose those because we'll need those later on. So make sure when you pull it apart that you look out for those. So these are the two halves now. Now another little, that's a little plastic bit that holds the tank on that we took off before, so make sure you don't lose that as well. So now we have to cut this little piece here, I think. That's what the article's telling us. We've got to cut this out. So if we take a closer look at what they're talking about by isolating the motor, it's the actual two contacts for the motor, which is this one. I'll put that down. It's this one and this one. They're the two contacts for the motor, and what they do is they touch on this to supply power to the motor. So we have to remove that section there, and same on the other half. And then we can run wires to our motor which will be independent of the chassis, which is what we want. So we want this motor totally isolated from the chassis. Alright, to do this I'll just use a small needle file, see how that goes. So we'll do that away from here because we don't want to fill our motor and that with iron filings. So we'll go away and do that, and I'll come back when it's done. Okay, so there's the first one done. I can see I've notched out that end part. Compare that. One that hasn't been done yet. So that's the part we cut out there, filed out. Show the other side. So that's what it looks like when it's cut out. Now, if we temporarily fit the motor, we need to do this to check that you've filed off enough. We can see one of the motor contacts is isolated from the chassis now, exposed, separate from it, which is what we want. So we're just going to do the other side, and then we'll move on to the running the wiring. Just make sure around here that you get rid of any burrs or any rough patches. So basically I've just filed right across to the sides as far as you can go, and to the end as far as you can go before you hit other parts of the chassis. So that's the part I've filed out. So that's what you should end up with after you've done all the filing. Okay, running the wires now. So what you can do is either make a groove here for the wire to run to the top, make a groove there in a chassis, and then solder your wire there and come across. Then I've read that some people actually solder their wire, feed it through here and come out the gap in between the two sides. So underneath there, it's a fairly tight fit, but I think I might give that option a go first, and if that's no good, then we can carve the groove in there. But we should be able to get a wire from there in and underneath. Just one other thing I'm doing is I've got a sanding stick here, and I'm gonna give that a nice little sand in there where the wire's gonna run. So make sure there's no, I've gone over with a file, but this will just finish it off, give it a nice smooth finish, so there's no chance of anything cutting through the wires. So do that on both halves, then we'll run the wire. So to run the wires, I've got my decoder. I think we'll reassemble, and then we can just run the wires through and solder them on the sides. So hopefully that'll work. So put all this back together. Back together finally. Bit of a tricky operation, but we got there. And now what I do before I start wiring it up is we'll just test it. Just get a 9-volt battery and just go on the motor terminals, make sure she still runs. It's okay that way. Reverse. All good. Other test we need to do, very important this one, is to make sure that these are isolated from the chassis, the motor terminals. So we put our multimeter on continuity. So if we do that, that's one side of the body. So nothing there, it's good, it's isolated. The same on the other side. It's a bit hard with all this paint to find a spot. So that's the edge there, but not the actual terminal itself. So that's good to go. Okay, I've got the wires in. That was probably the hardest way to do it. It's probably either better to cut a groove in the side here or do it before you put the chassis together, because it was very difficult to do that. But what I ended up doing was just running one wire straight through from one side to the other, pulling it up through the middle. They're both orange, doesn't really matter. I'll just connect those to the orange and grey wires on the decoder, and then the black and red, apparently you undo the screw tin your wire, put it under there, and the other one on the other side under the retainer. Right, we're all wired in. Put the black and red wires on the screws to the chassis, either side of the chassis. The orange and grey to the motor. Now I'm leaving these lighting wires there because I did see a mod where, or read about one anyway, where they drill little holes and put LEDs in the chassis. But we'll think about that for another day, if we do that or not. So we're ready now to put this on the programming track, see how it goes. Now the other thing is, might have to cut some of the shell out there, those little supports in the middle there to fit the decoder in, but we'll do that at the end. So we'll go and program it up now. Now before I put power on the programming track, I've got it completely disconnected. There's just a blank piece of track, just with the multimeter again, continuity. Just check there's no shorts there. Make sure that's going positive, yep. That to negative. And then you can check the terminals on the side of the motor, make sure they're not shorting out the chassis. We tested that before, but it's worth testing again. And do that around the other side. I've already done that before, so I'm happy with that. So now we can put the power on the programming track. Okay, so here we are on the programming track. It's reading manufacturer, decoder, that's a good start. So we've got it, give it a throttle now. There she goes. It's forwards, reverse. Like a successful conversion. I'm happy with that. It was really good. That's on speed step 2. Like I said, it ran really well on DC. So just got to fit that into the chassis now. We'll see how we go with that, whether we need to cut any bits out, and then we'll give it another test once we've done that. Yeah, so we're going to have to end up needing to cut this one out so the wire decoder can sit in there and the wires can run through there. Okay, we've got the cover on, it's all back. Now we can take it over to the layout and give it a run and see how we go.